have you been thinking about writing a book and becoming an author for a long time, or for really any amount of time? And have you been feeling like God is nudging you in that direction, nudging you to take that step, but you've still been putting it off? Do you know that if you were to tell your story, that it would have huge impact and ultimately change lives? If that sounds like you, put your hand up in the comments or say, yes, that's me, or you can just raise your hand, whatever works best for you in the comments, but let me know. I want you to know that you are in the right place. So I want you to look into that future vision that the Lord has given you with that desire. Imagine receiving a box in the mail, and as you open it with anticipation, that anticipation is building, right? You know what's inside. As you open the flaps, you pull out your very own book, the one that you have poured your heart into, that you've spent months preparing, all the way to get to this point. You see that beautifully designed cover, that golden bestseller sticker on it, your name on it. And you also kind of start to reflect on the journey that it took, how it's really been kind of a birthing process. And all of you guys that are moms in here know what that is, to grow something and work on something and then finally have that moment of like holding your baby. No, your book's not your baby, obviously, but it can have that feeling of immense accomplishment. But even more than that, even more than yourself, and even more than the fact that you wrote that book and accomplished that goal, I want you to imagine going to a book signing and hearing from others how your book changed their life, how it impacted them, how it shifted their perspective, where all of a sudden now they want to start pursuing that desire that the Lord has given them. And they feel like they can start pursuing the calling on their life. And you start to realize, wow, this is something that the Lord is using for something way beyond me. And that can feel like a big responsibility, right? That can feel terrifying. So let me know if whenever you think about it, you also kind of have that sense of fear and that sense of doubt. Maybe where you are right now is you have that desire, you have that vision, and yet you have been stuck. Every time that you try to sit down and write, everything feels like it's not clear, or it's not coming out the way you want it to, or it's not flowing on the page. And you're just thinking, am I really the one who can do this? Am I really adequate? Is this really going to make the difference that I know it's meant to make? And all of those self-doubt struggles and those questions keep coming up and keep circling around. And ultimately, you're just wondering, can I really do this? Guys, I am so sorry. My little one just popped in and she gave me something. And so forgive me. This is real life. I'm a mom. You guys can see that I'm doing this as a mom with my little one. So saying that and sharing that with you, I want to take a step back and share with you how this got started for me. So when I was a little girl, I always knew that I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be a mom. Those were those two things that I knew from the Lord, like that was what I was going to do with my life, right? But as I got older, life happened and it got put on the back burner, and I was working full time. I was going to school. I had little ones at home. My plate was full. I was worried about paying the bills and all of those things, right? And there was this one day where I was working, and so I had to miss a event that my son was doing at school. And when I went to pick him up from school, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes and he just said, "Mama, where were you?" I looked around and all the other kids' parents were here and I couldn't find you. And in that moment, I was heartbroken. And I just thought, I don't want to look back in 20 years with regret, wishing that I had just taken the steps I needed to take to pursue the calling that the Lord had given me way sooner. I thought, what if something happens to me and my children just remember me working, and that's, that was what I accomplished. And guys, don't get me wrong, I'm all for working in the right time and place, but I think it's so important to recognize when God is leading you to something and recognize when it's time to take a step of faith and trust that the Lord is going to guide your steps, just like he did with Moses and Abraham and so many other godly people throughout the Bible. God called, they took a step of faith, and then he guided their steps and blessed them through each of those steps. And so it is the same with a book that the Lord has placed on your heart. So since that time, I went and I dusted off the old manuscript and I got down into it and I honed my writing process and I started putting dedicated time to that work, to actually accomplishing that book. And I was able to finish that within 6 months. I got a publishing deal, didn't like the publisher, and that didn't work out as great as I thought it would. But from there, it opened the door for me. I went full on into the publishing industry, learning from best-selling authors what was working, how I could accomplish that bigger goal. And eventually, after a couple more books, I wrote my first bestseller. And once I understood the process, once I understood what it really took to accomplish that goal of publishing a bestseller, and not just hitting bestseller, but even beyond that, using that book as a tool for impact and for accomplishing those bigger purposes with the book. That's when people started asking me, okay, how are you doing this? You're working, you've got kids, and you're publishing best-selling books. What is happening? And so that's when I started getting together with people and just helping them, right? And that's when I decided, okay, the Lord is leading me one step at a time. And I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, I got ahead of God and I tried to do things my own way. The Lord is so good and so faithful. And he kind of reeled me back in and was like, okay, you need to learn to surrender this to me and to trust me for every single step. So through that process, since then, as Sasha announced, I have published 11 books and counting, some under a pen name with 4 bestsellers. And all while having more kids and transitioning from full-time work to being a full-time mom and homeschooling and all of those things. So no, I did not write 11 books with 4 kids at home homeschooling that whole time, but it has been a process that I've honed and developed as I have grown as a mother with my family and all of that. So having shared that with you guys, today what I want to really focus on is, number one, I want to talk about why the world needs your book and why now is the time, of course, as the Lord leads. I also want to share with you how you can actually write your book without writing hours every day, even as a busy mom. And I also want to share with you how to publish your bestseller and use your book for that bigger impact and for the kingdom of God. Now, I'm limited on time. I know that we're getting close to that VIP after party, and so I will condense, but I also want you guys to really get the helpful and practical implementable information that you need to take that next step. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with y'all because I believe that an image is very powerful in helping you to not only, have that visual representation, but it allows your mind to kind of start creatively thinking about something as you're hearing about the concept. So I'm going to share my screen and you guys let me know in the comments if y'all can see, which actually we'll circle back around on that. But my number one point is to let you know that you are a unique person. And I know that's easy to say, but think about the verse in Psalms where he says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And as you think about that, it's so critical to remember that no matter how many other books are out there, no matter how many other writers or authors on that same genre or topic, I'm going to give you something, and I want you to share with me in the comments if you've ever had this experience. Have you ever heard something a million times, and yet for some reason, the way one person says it or shares the story or kind of shares it with you, it finally clicks for you? You finally have that light bulb moment of, oh, and it changes everything. And suddenly you start doing things differently, or you start getting different results. Now, your story, God wants to use in somebody else's life that exact same way. And the fact of the matter is, you're the only person who can say it in that unique way. You're the only person that can share that unique story that the Lord has given you. So just like Moses at the burning bush saying, God, what are you doing? Pick somebody else. God is saying, who made man's mouth? I chose you. So if God has put this story on your heart, he has chosen you and he wants you to be the one to share it. And by you putting it off, you're withholding that impact and that change in someone's life. Now, I know that's kind of a big responsibility to put on your shoulders, right? And that's where trusting the Lord for each step comes in. So let me share with you the method of writing that the Lord has really put within me and taught me and that I've used to accomplish my books, and that I've also taught clients to be able to use with their books. This is for clients in a wide range of genres. I have helped clients from children's books to fantasy books to sci-fi to business to health to you name it, the genre. I have helped someone in that genre. So as we're going through this method, I want to talk you through the concept. Now, it's important to understand that there are many writing methods, and then there are types of storytelling. So I want to be clear here. A writing method is more like a philosophy or an approach that allows you to accomplish the writing itself, whereas a storytelling method is more like the way the story develops. So like zero to hero, right? Or like underdog to hero, or there's different ones. So when I talk about the tree writing method, remember that there are many different analogies to trees in our world today, right? It's kind of been corrupted by the enemy. But if you really think about it, the tree is this beautiful spiritual imagery all throughout the Bible. I mean, you start in the Garden of Eden where there's the tree of life. And of course, we end with the tree of life when we get to eternity. And I cannot wait for that. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you're the same. But also, if you go to the Psalms and the Proverbs, I love how David says that those who meditate on the word day and night, that they are like a tree planted by the living waters. And if you've ever, okay, so I'm in West Texas, where we have the dry season and then we have kind of the spring showers. And when the lakes get really low, we see the deep, strong, humongous roots of these trees that are planted by the lake or by the, by the water source. And they are so strong. Those trees are not going to be taken out by anything, even a drought. Like they are solid. And then of course the rain comes and you don't see the roots anymore. But that's the same concept. So when it comes to the tree writing method, my focus is not helping you master your writing craft from the very beginning or, focusing on all these different tactics. Instead, I want to get down into the roots of where you are right now with your approach to your writing. So the fact of the matter is that there are root causes underneath the reasons why you're putting it off, those blocks that you're experiencing, whether it be saying, I don't have the time, or I'm not motivated, or I'm not clear, or, what if it fails, or what if I have too much success, or like all the different things. There is a root cause underneath that is creating that block on the surface. And so the important thing is to really get down into those roots and figure out what is the root problem. Now, there's a workbook that is going with this training that has some exercises, and also another training that I did on the 5 root causes of writer's block, and really digs deep into those root causes and gives you practical exercises to be able to accomplish not only weeding those out, but getting clear and understanding your own process so that you can confidently start taking steps forward. And as you're going through that, what you are going to learn is that when you get clear and you actually get rid of those bad roots, those sick roots, because let's be honest, when you have bad roots, it affects the entire thing. If you have a plant that's planted and that plant has bad roots, that plant's going to die really fast. And it's going to corrupt everything. So in the same way, when you get rid of those bad roots and instead you establish good roots, all of a sudden the time disappears. All the different surface level blocks are suddenly eliminated, and you start taking those steps one at a time. So how do you establish those good roots? And I know I'm spending a lot of time on roots, but that's because they're so important because they lead to everything else. When you establish good roots, you start with the Lord. 100%. I think one thing that is easily neglected, and I know we've heard from so many amazing speakers on starting with the Lord throughout this whole conference, but I wanted to share that when you start with the Lord and you lay it at the Lord's feet and you say, okay, God, I'm going to start from a place of prayer. I'm going to start by inviting you into my writing space. And it's easy to invite the Lord into your day and into your parenting, into so many different things. But God wants to be an integral part of every single facet of your life, everything that you do, because he loves you and he made you and you are his precious child. And so he wants to be a part of what you're doing. And so if that's, parenting, or if it's working out, or if it's, going to the grocery store, or if it's writing or any other creative activity, he wants to be a part of that. So establishing those good roots is putting the Lord first and inviting him into your writing space and asking him to lead you through your writing process. And then from there, I'm going to go through these as quick as I can. I know we're short on time, but the Lord will guide you and you establish the right foundation that's going to set you up for success so that you can actually reach the end with your manuscript without getting stuck. And then, of course, from there, you grow the trunk, you grow the manuscript, you grow the writing through a consistent time and nurturing process. Okay, you're not going to write the whole book in one day. You're not going to write the book in hours every day. You're not going to write the book in a weekend. It's just not going to happen, especially for you busy mamas. What's going to happen is you're going to have small amounts of time that you commit, even if it's only 15 minutes out of the day or 30 minutes out of the day, or maybe a couple hours on a weekend day when you can get someone to help watch the kids for a little bit so you have undistracted time and you can just focus on your book. But it is going to happen over that more of a intentional, consistent, small amounts of time that you continue to grow that manuscript until it's finished. And I have a couple of rules of writing as well, but as that story grows, it grows into the branches that will allow it to flourish and produce fruit. So there's multiple facets to the story, whether that be your research that you're doing or the interviews that you include or the type of storytelling. I'm sharing different examples depending on if you're writing fiction or nonfiction, because let's be honest, a lot of times we think about nonfiction, but we forget that, guys, a lot of you might have a fiction story to tell. And fiction can be one of the most powerful methods of sharing something for the Lord. I mean, think about C.S. Lewis, right? With the Chronicles of Narnia. I mean, that's just like one of the most perfect examples of fiction being super powerful. So in that same way, once you get to that process, then there are multiple parts of the publishing process. And as you launch your book, you start to see the fruit of your labor pay off in the way that your book produces fruit for you and the way that you grow and transform and use that book, whether it be for more book ideas or growing a business or turning that book into a course. There's so many different things you can do. Or you start to see the fruit in your, or actually I should say, and you see the fruit produced in your readers' lives and the way that they're impacted, the way that they connect with you in your story, the way they don't feel alone anymore, the way that they learn and they grow in the Lord through reading your story. And I know Crystal said this earlier in her talk. She said the Lord wants to use your story, and that's absolutely true. But you have to be obedient and faithful and trust him for every single step. Now, the last thing I want to share with you is that your book is your gateway to a whole world of opportunity. So when you publish, there are many ways to get to bestseller, and they all work. It's crucial to pick one that's going to work best for you, and then stick it through to the very end and implement each step. Now, for time's sake, I don't have time to go into all the details, but I'm going to share something with you guys in a little bit that'll help you go a little bit deeper if you want that. But I want you to realize that ultimately your book is kind of a funnel itself that leads your reader on a journey of connecting with you as the author, having transformation as they read and they grow, and ultimately being able to connect with you further, either through something you share in the book or after the book or whatever that is. But it's definitely a funnel that leads the reader to connect further with you and to grow with you as the author beyond the book as well. So I want to share with you guys that the Lord gave me this verse earlier this year, and I was weeping when I read it because I had been praying about my business, and I took some time at the beginning of this year to just dedicate to the Lord. And I put everything else on the back burner, everything else on the side, my business, just everything, except, well, of course I had to be a mom, but I just dedicated that time to the Lord. And he gave me this, and he told me that as long as I am putting him first and walking in accordance with the steps that he's leading me in, that he will guide me in those steps. And so this was the verse that he gave me. It says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. That's Proverbs 13:12. Another translation says, when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. And so when you think about something that you feel like the Lord has been calling you to do, but you've been putting it off, it causes so much of those negative feelings inside of you because you keep putting it off. And you're like, oh, I know the Lord wants me to do this, but I'm just, all the reasons why, right? But then when you start to step forward and you see that desire start coming to fruition, even before it's fully come, even before it's fully there, and you see the Lord working and moving and providing, it just becomes this beautiful thing. It's like you get such peace and joy and excitement seeing what the Lord is doing and seeing how he fulfills those things in your life. So if you are someone who has been wanting to write a book, but you have been struggling with feeling like, oh, I'm so busy, or I don't know how, or I don't know if it can really come together in the right way, or it just feels so big, or all those different things that I mentioned. I want to gift you guys a special opportunity. So this gift is a personalized bestseller assessment. And what to expect from this opportunity is a chance to just have a more personal conversation on where you are right now with that story that the Lord has given you and what's really been holding you back. Forgive the little baby screams in the background, you guys. But this opportunity is one where we're just going to talk about where you are right now, what that bigger vision looks like, what's been really holding you back, so we can dig into your personal root causes of the block. And I will help you craft a personalized step-by-step roadmap to accomplish that goal within the next 90 to 180 days. And I know that sounds crazy, but believe me, it's absolutely possible when you have the right steps and you have the right clarity to get there. So here's the link to do that at wewritebooks.com/bestseller assessment. And I definitely can't wait to connect with you and see you on my calendar and have that more personalized conversation. I closed the sharing on purpose so that I can see you guys with my face. But I would love to have that conversation and help you craft that roadmap to accomplish that book that the Lord has given you. And the last thing I want to share with you is just to remember that your book can change a life.